The fading light of dusk spilled through the cracked windows of an old attic, dust motes swirling in the air like restless spirits. Amidst stacks of forgotten relics, Alex, a determined urban explorer, carefully unfolded a brittle, yellowed map. The map, dated back to the 1950s, was a curious find in a military archive sale. On it, a small, almost invisible name caught Alex's eye: Ravenshollow. Curiosity ignited, Alex zoomed in on the town's location, nestled deep in the dense forests of a remote county. But when Alex cross-referenced modern maps and databases, Ravenshollow was nowhere to be found. Not on Google Maps, not in census records, not even in local libraries. It was as if the town had never existed. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex packed gear and set out toward the coordinates marked on the map. The journey led to a narrow dirt road flanked by towering pines. Soon, Alex reached a cluster of nearby towns, but the locals were tight-lipped. When asked about Ravenshollow, their faces tightened, eyes darting away as they muttered, "There's no such place. Never was." Still, rumors surfaced, hushed whispers of people who ventured toward the forest and never returned. Some spoke of strange lights flickering between the trees at night, others warned of a silent town swallowed by shadows. Alex's recorder captured these eerie tales, the tension thickening with every story. Venturing deeper into the forest, Alex found faint signs: an overgrown path, a rusted mailbox hanging crookedly from a bent post, and the charred remains of a wooden sign half buried in leaves. It read, barely legible, "Welcome to Ravenshollow." Heart-pounding, Alex set up camp, the quiet night broken only by the crackling of a small fire and the occasional distant howl. Hours later, static burst through Alex's handheld radio, cutting through the silence. A distorted voice crackled with urgency, "They're still here, but not alive." The message sent chills down Alex's spine, a final warning etched in the static. Then, silence. Days later, Alex was nowhere to be found. The only trace left was the flickering radio, transmitting that same chilling message on loop. Ravenshollow had claimed another soul, slipping back into the shadows as if the town itself had never existed at all. In the biting cold of 1953, beneath a sky heavy with looming clouds and tension, Corporal James Mercer sat alone in a dimly lit radio shack at a military base just miles from the forgotten town of Ravenshollow. The world was gripped by the Cold War, suspicion and secrecy hung in the air like the static that crackled through his radio equipment. James's job was routine: monitor communications, intercept foreign transmissions, and ensure nothing slipped through that could threaten national security. But one night, as the clock ticked past midnight, his antenna picked up something different, a faint, erratic burst of static weaving through the usual background noise. At first, it seemed like interference. But the static began to form patterns, almost like Morse code, pulsing rhythmically from a civilian radio tower deep in the woods where Ravenshollow was said to exist. James grew obsessed with deciphering the strange messages, day and night poring over them, tracing their source. As days passed, the codes grew more complex, fragments of phrases, cryptic sequences, whispers of a plan. His journal filled with frantic notes, sketches of frequency charts, and unsettling interpretations, unusual signals, from Ravenshollow. Possible government blackout? Unknown forces? Then, just as suddenly as they began, the transmissions stopped. James's journal entries ended abruptly, mid-sentence, leaving a haunting silence behind. But the mystery deepened. When his superiors searched the archives, all mention of Ravenshollow had vanished, not just erased from maps but scrubbed from every federal and local record. It was as if the town had never existed at all. Weeks later, a distorted broadcast was intercepted by an anonymous source, breaking through the airwaves with a chilling declaration: "Protocol Blackfall initiated, total erasure confirmed." The message hung like a specter over the empty frequencies, confirming a terrifying truth: something or someone had wiped Ravenshollow from existence, and anyone who knew about it had been silenced. Back at the base, the radio room remained deserted. James Mercer was never seen again. The town, the signals, and the secrets faded into the static, a ghostly reminder of a place that vanished not just overnight, but from memory itself. In the cool, eerie silence of a late autumn evening in 1948, Thomas Reed, a weary census-taker, drove down a winding rural road toward a small town whispered about but never officially listed, Ravenshollow. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving a purple-blue twilight that swallowed the landscape whole. Thomas's task was simple: count the residents, gather their information, and move on. But as he approached the town's edge, a creeping unease settled in his chest. The streets were unnervingly quiet. No children's laughter, no dogs barking, only the faint rustling of dry leaves in the wind. Knocking on the first door, Thomas was greeted by a stiff smile that didn't reach the man's eyes. Every resident he met wore the same unsettling grin: too perfect, too forced. Their voices were monotone, words rehearsed. No one had children, no pets, no signs of normal life. It was as if time itself had stopped. By midnight, Thomas sat in his car, scribbling notes into his journal. He wrote of people who aren't quite people, their eyes hollow yet watching. Suddenly, the night air shifted. A low hum filled the silence. Thomas looked up to see shadows moving between the houses, figures that flickered like static on a broken television. Heart pounding, he started his car to leave, but the engine sputtered and died. Panic set in as the shadows closed in, and his journal abruptly ended mid-sentence, pages stained with an unknown dark smear. The next morning, his abandoned car was found on the edge of a nearby cornfield, doors wide open, but Thomas was nowhere to be seen. The only clue left behind was his tape recorder, still running, capturing a faint whisper repeating, "They're copying us, one by one." Ravenshollow had claimed another victim, leaving behind a haunting message that sent chills through anyone who dared to listen. The sky was heavy with thick, gray clouds as Emma, a seasoned hiker, pushed through tangled underbrush in the remote forest. Her boots crunched over layers of fallen leaves and broken twigs, damp from a recent rain. What started as an ordinary trek quickly turned surreal when she stumbled upon something unnatural: scorched earth scattered with blackened remnants of buildings, shattered glass glinting like broken stars, and foundations barely visible beneath ash and moss. Emma's heart raced as she took in the eerie scene, the ruins of a town wiped clean by fire. Nearby, a weathered stone marker jutted from the ground, half covered in moss but still legible: "Here slept Ravenshollow." A chill swept over her, as if the ruins whispered secrets better left buried. She recalled the old legend spoken quietly in the surrounding villages, stories of a strange rain that fell one night in 1954, turning the sky black and choking the land. Villagers spoke of men in black suits who came with strange instruments, collecting soil and ash samples, issuing orders to stand down as the town burned under a sky that wasn't its own. Emma's investigation led her to a retired firefighter, now frail but haunted by memories he tried to bury. With a trembling voice, he described how they were told to hold back as the fire consumed Ravenshollow, a fire that wasn't natural, as if the town was burning from inside out. The firefighter's hands shook as he showed her a faded photograph taken during that terrible night. It depicted the townsfolk looking up, faces frozen in terror, mouths agape as something unseen blazed the sky above them. Their eyes reflected a horror far beyond flames. Emma snapped the photo, feeling the weight of the past pressing down. Ravenshallow's ashes whispered one final warning: the town had not just vanished, it had been erased by something dark and unstoppable. Years had passed since Ravenshollow vanished from maps and memories, swallowed by time and silence. But in the present day, strange anomalies began to appear in satellite images over the dense forest where the town once stood. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch, an error in the data. Yet, as the days passed, the images grew clearer, revealing outlines of intact streets, houses, and buildings eerily frozen in time. Curious and cautious, a tech-savvy paranormal investigation team assembled to explore this ghostly return. They launched a drone equipped with cameras and sensors into the forest's heart, following the coordinates pulled from the satellite data. The drone's live feed streamed to a growing online audience, buzzing with anticipation. At first, the drone's camera showed nothing but dense foliage and silence. Then suddenly, the outline of an old town emerged, empty streets lined with weathered houses, windows dark but strangely intact, as if preserved by some unseen force. As the drone ventured deeper, viewers reported seeing faint lights flickering in windows and shadowy figures moving just beyond the trees. The stream's chat exploded with excitement and fear as faces appeared at broken windows, staring blankly at the camera. Then, without warning, the drone's signal cut out abruptly. A chilling, static-filled message replaced the video feed, "We never left." The phrase echoed over the speakers, sending a wave of terror through the online crowd. In the days following, strange messages flooded the internet, coordinates appearing in dreams, radio static carrying faint voices, and whispers of Ravenshollow's return spreading like wildfire. The town that disappeared overnight wasn't gone. It was waiting, watching, alive in the static between worlds.